Hello and welcome to Kloeker's Education Foundation, providing quality content for amazing teachers and students. This is our World History series, and this lesson is on Europe exploring the East. Before we begin, don't forget you can check out the link in the description below for a set of free guided notes to this lesson, as well as other resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. Let's dive in. Our essential question for this lesson is what innovations allowed and enabled Europeans to explore further and further. And so our lesson is going to be divided into 4 parts. New inventions in sailing, Portugal leading into a new age, Spain joining the race of exploration, and the Dutch beginning to explore. After the medieval era, we saw that the Europeans are exploring via the Crusades throughout the Mediterranean into Southwest Asia, and explorers like Marco Polo have made voyages making it as far as India and China. For the most part, Europeans had no interest to explore these lands, nor did they really have the ability to travel very far, especially as traveling by land took much longer, but the technology was not around for sailing. Now, by the 1400s, the desire for wealth has grown great enough, and the technology, the sailing techniques, have advanced far enough along to spark an era of exploration. These medieval kingdoms are looking to expand their wealth without having to go through the Muslim caliphates or the Ottoman Empire in order to acquire this wealth, and they don't have the desire of going through the Mongols, and so they look to the sea to acquire these sources of wealth: spices, luxury goods, etc. Demand is increasingly high as the amount of wealth in Europe has been building, and supply is low, so merchants can charge more. Nations like England, Spain, and Portugal, as well as France, are finally tired of having to go through the Italian merchants to try and gather luxury goods from Southwest Asia or Africa, and so they set out to find new sea routes for themselves. Now, the motivations, of course, the 3 G's, if you're unfamiliar with: God, gold, and glory. The desire to spread Christianity, to amass wealth, and to amass power and prestige. Europeans are also going to use Christianity as a means to justify their travel. They want to convert the non-Christians throughout the world. 2 major technologies and tools will become super important to this era of exploration. That is the caravel, a new type of ship. It is sturdier. Triangle sails at the front are stronger against headwinds. It has a larger cargo area and a shallower draft, so it can get closer to the shoreline without running aground or hitting the bottom, if you will. And the sextant, it is an essential tool that is used to determine your latitude and longitude, so you can determine your location, which is instrumental for when you're out on the ocean. Here you can see a cutout of a caravel, how the ship has a larger cargo area, the stores. It has larger places for cruise quarters, so you can have more people, as well as larger storage for food, and how the sails are orientated on the ship. Here you can see the breakdown of a sextant and the different parts that are labeled, and it's quite an intimidating tool if you're unfamiliar with it. It does require the use of a nautical almanac. Basically, there are books that were established that would say here are the codes that you'll get or the degrees you'll get, and that is your location. Basically, you look through the telescope as you adjust the index arm until the sun is reflected from the index mirror onto the horizon mirror. So basically, you're looking through the scope and you're setting the sun to where it's on the horizon. You jot down where on the graduated arc your degrees are, and then you check that with the book to say, oh, this is where I am at. And you can do this with the sun or with notable constellations, as long as you have a clear view of the sky and the time. Now, Portugal will be the leader in the age of exploration, and you can see here how massive of a colonial empire they established during this era. Again, the European powers are tired of going through Italy. They do not want to go through the Ottoman or the Mamluk Empire. They don't want to go through the Mongols to get to China, to get to India, to get to Japan, and so they look to the sea. And Portugal will begin sailing along the coast of Africa. Da Gama will be instrumental in outlining this. You can see where they established trading ports all along the coast of Africa, within Southwest Asia, along India, Southeast Asia, all the way towards the Spice Islands, and even up to China at Macau, Nanking, and Nagasaki. Now the Pope will step in and he will draw a border between the Spanish and the Portuguese in the Treaty of Tordesillas. This is, of course, we'll talk about it later. But you can see that Portugal is allowed to have territory inside this range. You can see it goes from the coast of Brazil all the way through to Japan. And Spain will get whatever is outside of that, as this is drawn when the New World is discovered and they're unfamiliar and unsure of how large that is going to be. Exploration takes time, but it takes money and it takes people, and you have to know someone in high places in order to get that type of funding in this era. And Prince Henry, the son of the king, is just about as high as you can go. Prince Henry is an enthusiastic explorer. He wants to go and expand the reach of the Portuguese. They're the first to establish trading ports along the coast of Africa. They are bringing back luxury goods from Africa, from Southwest Asia and India, all without paying the caliphates, the Ottoman, or the Italians. Portugal is going to have a major explorer, Vasco da Gama, pictured bottom left, and he is going to be the first to sail around the coast of Africa and make it to Southwest India. And he is absolutely astonished by the amount of wealth, spices, and other luxury resources that India has that he can bring back to Portugal. And when he makes it back, the remarkable almost 30,000-mile journey is about 60 times the profit of what it cost for the trip. And so Portugal is going to pour all of their resources into establishing a sea route to India. And you can see his voyage from Lisbon down around the Cape of Good Horn all the way to India, making his way through several cities before returning back to Portugal. Now, Spain had territories within Europe. They owned the southern half of Italy. They owned Netherlands and Belgium at the time. And in 1492, they hire Columbus. He, of course, is trying to find a new way to India, and so he sails west and arrives in the New World. And the Pope, of course, drew that line 2 years after, saying, this is how I'm dividing the New World. This piece is Portugal. This piece is the Spanish. And you can see the massive Spanish empire that they are going to establish within the New World, from the southern coast of Latin America all the way up to the modern-day states. And you can see some of the trade routes established within this age. Spain is standing by watching Portugal acquire this vast amount of wealth and is envious of their success. And so in 1492, with the completion of the Reconquista, Ferdinand and Isabel hire an Italian sailor by the name of Christopher Columbus to find a new route to India and Asia, and instead of sailing south around Africa, he will sail west across the Atlantic and discover the Americas. Now, of course, we use the word discover kind of lightly here, as we've had records of the Vikings making it long before he did, and how can you discover a continent which already has people on it? But he discovered or rediscovered America for the Europeans. The Portuguese think that he has arrived in Asia because, again, we're unsure about the exact proportions of the world. And so they're saying that Spain has landed on land that Portugal has already claimed. And this is, of course, starting a major rivalry between Spain and Portugal. This is when the Pope has to step in to settle the claim. And so the Pope creates the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1492, a line that divides the globe. Spain will get everything west of the line to include most of the Americas, and Portugal will get everything east to include part of modern-day Brazil, Africa, and Asia. But Mr. Kloeker, you mentioned the Dutch and the Ming unit. I did, and we're going to talk about them right now. If you remember from the Reformation lessons, the Dutch were Protestant, and they are, of course, very anti-Spain. And so they're going to declare their independence from Spain in 1581, establish the Dutch Republic, and be fairly successful at driving out the Spanish. By the 1600s, the Dutch have the largest trading fleet in the world with over 20,000 ships, and a large part of that is due to the Dutch East India Company. This company is going to mint their own money, they're going to make their own treaties, they're going to raise their own military, and was arguably more powerful and more richer than the British East India Company, as you may have seen in Pirates of the Caribbean. And the Dutch are going to pretty much rely on this company to orchestrate most of the trade for the nation. Eventually, the Dutch will even drive out the English and establish their dominance in trade over the East Indies. East Indies is referring to Southeast Asia, of course, with places like Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Indochina, and of course the Spice Islands. The West Indies will refer to the Caribbean. And you can see the expanse of their massive network, right? Where the ships are going to the Dutch East Indies, to Japan, to China, India, Arabia, and of course what they were getting and giving in each of those regions. This new age of exploration with the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, and the English, it is incredibly, incredibly competitive and incredibly expensive. And this is only going to further drive the exploitation and the colonization of these new lands by the European powers in order to pay and justify for the cost. It's going to lead the Europeans to Africa, to India and the Far East, like China and Japan and Indochina, and eventually even to the New World with North and South America. So if you would take a few moments and answer our essential question, what innovations enabled Europeans to travel further and further in this age of exploration? That wraps up our lesson. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially if you found this video helpful. If you want to see what's new and what's next in our series, click here. Click down below for something you might like. And to subscribe to our channel, click here. All this and more is just a click away. I'll see you there.